Attention bobsled riders! You will soon be embarking on a thrilling podcast down the icy slopes of the Matterhorn. So please remain seated, keeping your hands, arms, feet, and legs inside the bobsled at all times. Auf Wiedersehen!
Hello, Yodelers! We are the Matterhorn Yodelers. I am your host today, Jackie. We have...
Chiefus.
And...
Donald. Peter.
Donald Duck is here!
That's a step up.
And today, we're bringing it back to the parks, but two different parks.
Yeah, 2 parks.
And so we are going to compare the same or
Similar
attraction
attractions
at Disneyland and at Disney World and kind of go over the difference. We might talk about our preference between the two.
We will.
Yeah, and like the idea behind this, actually, this was my idea for an episode because going back to when I first left to go work at Disney World,
Many moons ago,
2006, probably before some of our listeners were ever born, sadly enough.
That's good for our demographic,
right? I did have a newsletter, and I only did like 4 or 5 of them, email newsletters that I would send out to people, and I would ask people like, what is it you want me to review at Disney World? And most, grew up in Arizona, most of the people had never been to Disney World, so like, I don't know what's there. Even my wife, she's like, I don't know what's there. I don't get it.
I get that question all the time, like, well, what should I do? And I'm all like, well, look at the map and do things that aren't at Disneyland.
Yep.
Because that's what you're familiar with. And so go do something different. And then do what's there. And then you can discuss over, lunch or dinner, which one's better.
Correct. And I think this is going to be very informative because Disneyland and Disney World have very similar attractions. And people like to draw their comparisons and pick their favorites, which we will probably as well.
I think Disney World, when it first opened, only had 4 attractions that were different from
It was something like that.
Disneyland.
There wasn't that many.
So we're going to start with J5th and tell us what attractions you're comparing.
I'm going to compare I'm going to do the Haunted Mansion. I'm going to do Space Mountain. So you first start off, we'll do a little history with the success of the Matterhorn. Who would have thought? Matterhorn. That's where it all starts.
It does.
It really jumpstarts everything.
You might go into it, but it's okay. It's the first tubular steel roller coaster in the world. So
groundbreaking.
Yep.
Arrowhead design, right?
If you think about your favorite roller coasters, most likely you can thank the Matterhorn.
And that came out in 1959?
Yeah.
Which you're like, wow, that was...
Yep.
It's crazy. Almost like 70 years. So with the success of that, Walt gets the idea like, hey, this is doing well. And this will attract people coming back, youth will come back here. And so they come up with the idea of spaceport.
Yes.
And it'll be, the initial concept have 4 separate tracks. It's going in and out of here to kind of simulate a junction point for aircrafts coming in and out. And I thought that would really build up the space theme. Unfortunately, technology, because they wanted to be all run by computers, and technology and space prevented it from happening. And then Walt's death happens, and then they're trying to get Walt Disney World going, and that's a huge project.
Yep.
They took a swamp and they built a kingdom.
It was definitely a project that got pushed out, and it eventually got built at that time period in the 70s when they were still trying to figure out what they were going to be.
There's an identity crisis with the thrill
parks. So they were kept going back to old Walt ideas, and Space Mountain was one of them.
It's kind of like old Tupac songs and like
right,
or Kurt Cobain songs that people pull from.
That's right. And it's like Tupac's new album Wait, he's been gone for...
He had a napkin that I found in the bottom of this bag that had 3 words, and we made a whole song. Oh, okay.
Made an album.
So with that, he had all these great ideas, and so for this, Disney Magic Kingdom opens, saw great success at Disney World, and so they're like, all right, let's build upon this, and within 2 years, they're building Space Mountain. Yep. And they went from a 4-track system to a 2-track system. They put it indoors. I kind of think the weather has to be a factor of that too. There's space issues. They can't put it up too high because you'll overshadow the castle. So they had to build it underground a little bit. Or, yeah, they build it underground.
It does.
And so it's finally opened in 1975, and boom, it's a success. And at that point, they're like, let's bring it over to Disneyland. And so you first start off, we get there, either one, you look at them, they look identical. It's very iconic. You go to one to the other, you feel like you're going to get a good product.
Even if you go to Tokyo, looks exactly the same. Paris, not so much.
No.
But Tokyo looks the same.
With Paris, you're getting a different experience too.
Yes, you do get a different experience in Paris.
So we're not discussing Paris.
International parks.
No.
I know.
And you talk about Tokyo, you're going to get a lot of the same experiences with basic rides. But you look at it aesthetically, it looks the same. But as you go into it, it's kind of different. So Peter, explain to me, as you're walking into Disneyland Space Mountain, what is it like? Is it like you walk through the doors and it's immersive, or
it's a silver hallway that goes down a ramp?
Well, that's when you get into the building. What about when just getting to that entrance?
Oh, the outdoor queue, which they actually did expand. There's a little bit indoor now. Yeah, it's just like a switchback chain queue on top of the theater.
Yeah, so you just go up this little walkway.
Yeah. It's like you do this big roundabout walk around before you can even get into the building. And because Fast Pass exists, that standby queue, if you're outside, stinks.
It's the worst.
It is the worst. But as soon as you get in the building, that line moves, which is another case for why Fast Pass is not good.
It is. I don't think I've stood in the line at Disneyland.
I've done it a few times.
Or the non-Fast Pass.
I've done it a few times when it hasn't been too bad.
Too busy. So yeah, you get this open, you're walking through, and it's just, you're not in there. It feels like you go on this 1/4-mile walk before you even get to the front doors where you feel like, I'm in Space Mountain. No, and as you said, once you get to that point, you walk in, and it's this gray corridor.
Yeah.
You went from outside California to I'm now.
Which I remember it used to be themed before they remodeled it.
I think they used to have open panels where
they had television screens where they had like cheesy TV ads and things like that.
Usually the sponsor of the time.
So, but no, that's all gone now. Now it's just gray hallway until you get to
the loading area,
which is
cool.
The coolest room.
I think it is the coolest room, and it jump starts. Explain what it feels like when you walk into that room.
First of all, you're like, I made it. I'm gonna be on the ride 5 minutes. You have that yes, I'm in. Even if you're right at that entrance, you're I'm gonna be on that ride, no time.
Yeah, for a Disneyland, yes. And the thing is, it's a single track ride. There's only one track going at this time, so they're moving quickly.
And it's funny because I do have a game I play in that queue where
it splits off.
Where I know exactly, I try to pick out which ride vehicle I'm going to be in because they all have numbers on them, and so I know roughly about where I am in comparison to where I'll be when I get down there and be like, okay, that's going to be the number. I'm usually right, or I'm just one off.
But also, you've got this huge, what is it,
it's like a spaceship.
It's
almost like a cargo
or a transport.
Yeah.
Hang-in, so you're looking at that, and then they have this huge, screen with, of space and, shooting. I don't know.
Yes, at the very front, like you're
Yes.
in this big cargo like area, like a port. But yeah, you could see like space in those like videos. So you get down there and you get into the load. Okay, so let's go to Disney World and kind of go into their queue. Like you walk right into the queue, like unless the line is going outside of the building.
Most of the queue is indoors.
It's
Yes.
indoors, which is great.
It is wonderful.
Because you're in Florida and it's humid and hot, and the last thing you want to do is be in a line that's really long out there. And usually seeing the line going outside of the building deters people from going in, as opposed to going to Disneyland where like, oh, come on in. Oh, you don't know how bad the line is. You go up there,
you see like the 50,000 switchbacks up there. And you're like,
yeah, it's the tease queue. You don't know what you're gonna get when you get there. But with Disney World, if it's going out the window, you're like, you get people going, no, let's do the people mover and let's wait. So you go through, and so you go into their corridor. Is it different, Jackie?
Yeah, it's different.
They got the little ball pits that they used to have in there.
it has that first room has a very like Star Tours vibe.
Yes.
Yes, as you go down.
That first. It's very similar to that first room you enter in when you go ride Star Tours, where you see C-3PO. It's very reminiscent of that. You just kind of go down and around till you go down underground, because you have to go underneath the railroad track to get to the ride building.
Mm-hmm.
They also have like interactive games in that queue.
They do.
I think they got rid of them.
I think they stopped them. I watched the video, but they used to. And
well,
used to be
when did they get rid of them?
recently.
It was a few years ago. It was like a couple years ago.
I think it was, they said 2015 or 16.
Okay.
So around the time when you...
Well, they were there when I was there.
Okay, so it may have been...
Put in 2016, probably.
Because I saw that, I was like, that was kind of a plus for the queue. Like, they used to have these screens on there and you used to push the buttons, and they were kind of difficult, but if you're going to be stuck in the line...
It was fine.
That was kind of cool. Like,
it was during that time period where
interactive
Disney
queues.
World was trying to do a really good job of interactive queues. That's when they did their Haunted Mansion one. They
Thunder Mountain.
They did the Winnie the Pooh one.
Oh, yeah.
The Mine Train is interactive.
Games
Peter
there.
Pan.
So, like, yeah, Disney World went through this phase of, like, interactive queues. So, you do see remnant. I don't think the buttons, I think they took the buttons out. Yeah.
And, like, those scenes through there, they used to have, like, RCA, because that was the original sponsor who helped build with financially Space Mountain. And so with that, they used to have like little scenes for the advertisers of like, hey, this is our stuff. It's space-like, and we're bringing you the future. For I don't even know what RCA was. Was there like an electronic company? I think that's what it was. They used to do the like video cameras and like TVs at the time.
That's why at Disney World, at the end queue, they had the cameras.
Oh.
They used to have the cameras.
Yeah.
And they would show you.
I just thought they used to want us to steal some of the ride scenes. That's probably a factor.
Yeah.
So with that, yes, you go through interactive, and then you go and they have the split queues once you get like two different rides, right?
Yes.
Very Matterhorn style, where like, what side's better?
And
left side or right side.
And people always, there's always that discussion. You always ask the cast members, and cast members will lie to you. Oh, this one's faster, or this one.
No, they'll tell you this. The one thing that they always said, oh, they're exactly the same thing.
Oh, but you'll get some that lie to you.
No. You're a lie. I know there's a difference.
Yeah, people are like, oh, there is a difference. One has to go a little bit further to cross over the track. You know, so there's like 6 extra feet to the track. And it's straight, not up and down quick. No. It's just because of how it's angled and it has to cross over.
The angle of the picture side is different.
And yes, and so we'll get to that. We'll get into the vehicles. Jackie, you'll explain the ride for Magic Kingdom. Peter, you'll do Space Mountain at Disneyland. Okay. So what's it like at Magic Kingdom?
It is. The ride vehicle is like straight, so it's
toboggan style.
It's like a toboggan style, and so you've got like, is it 3?
Yeah, 3.
Yeah.
And you get like a T strap.
It's a T bar.
Is it great to have
that? It's so hard, even if you have like a backpack too, and you have to like squish it in.
You're like putting it between your legs, and you have this T-bar. It's just, it's difficult. It's very frustrating. All right, Peter.
It's not meant for big people, that's for sure.
It's not meant for. Did they even consider people when they did that?
Probably not. So, like the ride vehicle for Disneyland, it sits 6 per vehicle. So there's 2 trains on each one, so it fits 12 people. They're full chairs. It's a lap bar,
Yeah.
you know, and there's speakers on it.
Oh yes.
The speaker.
And I'm sure that will come into discussion later when we talk about the differences.
Of course, that is. I think
it.
that's probably one of the critical ones.
Agreed.
And the biggest complaint for. So we get on the ride as we're going on at Magic Kingdom. There's picture location. There's 2 different picture locations. And Magic Kingdom, it's at the beginning, behind a turn.
Very unexciting turn. It's just like you go down the light tunnel, and then you turn and they take your picture, and it's just like nothing has happened, and they took your picture.
It's just as good to see people's surprised faces as dinosaurs.
Right. Because like most of the pictures of the Disney World Space Mountain is just like straight faced people, just like waiting for the ride to
And
start.
it's usually like a side profile too, because it's on the side, and
they're not expecting it, so they're like, oh.
if you want your full face in it, you have to turn and look at the camera.
And it's unnatural because you're just like, I know where the picture is. Smile, everyone. It's just awkward. And if you're wearing shorts, you see your legs. So, like, ladies, if it was a no shave day for those legs, hello, it's in the picture. So you're just, you have to turn, and then your whole body's, and it's just so unnatural how they just do it. Worst location. As opposed to the end of Disneyland, at the straightaway, the most exciting part, and they're just, boom, they take your picture.
They flash you.
Yes.
With that camera flash, and it just hits you.
One thing I will say, I do like the camera view of the Disney World one better, because it is side by side. You get to see your face, which the Disney one, if someone in front of you has their hands up, you're going to be blocked out.
That's
and
true.
So
my wife's notorious for doing that with my face. Every time we take a picture, her hand's like in my face. Like, you go straight up, not to the side, like you're doing the YMCA.
There has to be there has to be some sort of training for people for
picture taking on rides.
rides.
Happens. Tower of Terror. That's a very popular one where
I
people.
my hands up.
I want the front row and put my hands up, and so that the people in the back don't get their picture, and it stinks.
And you're on the back. You did like a great post, and you're like, dang it.
I know. I've had to retake because I had a series of photos I took of me reading books on rides.
Oh yeah, I remember that period.
Yeah, and I had to do a few takes on that one because of people's hands going up.
I think there should be like a little like squirt gun. Kind of like the Buzz Life show where they squirt you with water. They'll do that. Like, there's a little like water gun that shoots you in the face. Like, you've done a faux pas. So yes, so the picture location is different. Okay, so we go through the tunnels. We're getting up to the ride. We're climbing up. There is a difference. Magic Kingdom's hasn't really been updated
At all.
And as you go into like Disneyland, they've got these like LCD screens where it's swirling around. It looks like you're going into hyperspace in Star Wars, or
They make the hill climb exciting.
yes.
Whereas Disney World, you still you sitting there, and you're just waiting.
Yeah.
Whereas Disneyland, you've got the music playing, and it's going up. It's getting
It's
you get
like
your
a
excitement
story
out, and then you have that
anticipation.
grand. Because again, the big differences, and we might as well talk about it now, is the music.
Yes.
The music,
Let's talk about it.
because it's an integral part. Because because though I would say downside to the Disneyland part is after that initial climb, the roller coaster doesn't necessarily start. You go around and you have to go up another climb.
There's just
But the music makes you appreciate the space, because you have that build of and then like you have this.
Yeah, you're in space.
And so like you have this opportunity to like look around in the dark and like hear the roller coaster going on around you, and like the music gets you excited. And then you have the countdown. Then you have the countdown.
Whoa.
And then you go. And then like Disneyland did a great job in terms of making the boring part exciting.
They really did, and I think that's one of the big downfalls is with Magic Kingdom is they have music.
They added music because
it's the biggest complaint. They call it stereophonic.
Yes.
Where they put speakers throughout the ride.
Yeah, where you just hear it as you pass by.
Well, yeah, it gets louder and it goes away. Louder and it goes away. So they put it throughout and it doesn't work. No, it sucks.
It needs to be in the vehicle, which I know Disney World's is older and it doesn't have the capabilities of having the speakers without completely demolishing the entire roller coaster.
And yeah,
I get it, but it's still
Band-Aid for a giant wound. And it's apparent because I remember we went to Disneyland right before I went to Disney World, and Space Mountain's one of the top rides to ride.
It is.
And then you get over to Disney World and you're just like, that castle's so big, it's amazing. And then you ride Space Mountain, you're going, wow, that
was different.
That was a letdown. And then you're like, let's try Buzz Lightyear. And going, oh man, that was even worse.
I just remember I was in the college program and there was someone I knew, and I knew they'd been to Disneyland, and I was like, oh, which Space Mountain do you like better, Disney World or Disneyland? She's like, oh, Disney World. I was like, are you crazy?
I can't be friends with you anymore.
One of those dividing issues. Which Space Mountain are you?
Yeah, and it's true. And so as you're riding the ride, do you notice a difference in the track system?
Yes, there is a difference.
And there is. They're different. I've got the layout here, and I've looked at them, and there's just smoother turns, and it feels like you're going faster with Disneyland.
Yes. I agree that you do. You probably do. I'm assuming you do.
I don't think you go faster. I think you only go 35 miles an hour.
Oh, okay. But yeah, it's just. I think the difference is like Disneyland depends on those turns to make you feel like you're going faster,
and that is the key.
Whereas Disney World has a lot more dips. They've got more drops, which I've heard that argument that there's more thrills on it because it has drops, whereas Disneyland has like 1.5 drops.
Yeah.
It reminds me of one of my favorite memories was I was on Space Mountain at Disney World, and there was an Irish man in front of me, and he was not expecting the thrill of the drops. He was cussing up a storm in his strong Irish accent. It was so funny.
People with accents on rides are the best. There was somebody on Soarin' that I will never forget.
Yep. Yeah, we talked about that.
This one is so I was riding. I think this was at Disneyland.
It was Disneyland.
Were you there with us?
Yeah, I was there with you.
And this lady, she's from back east, and you get to the scene where they
because it was soaring over California.
Soaring over California. You get over the scene where you get the orange groves, and this lady had never been on the ride before, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, it smells like oranges in here! Oh, it smells like oranges!" And that has left such an impression on me and our family.
Oh, yeah,
where you can't see that scene without going, "Oranges!"
Yep.
So it is fun to ride with people who've never been on before, and accents just make it that much better. Because we have that bland Western United States accent that we have. So yes, we run the ride, and we've kind of discussed.
I will say this one last part about the ride: the endings vastly different.
Huge.
Yes.
It's so anticlimactic with Magic Kingdom.
Absolutely.
You make this turn, you make the last bank, and then you go cruising. You're like blue, blue. Like the race has ended, and you're like, okay.
Yeah, you're just cruising. Whereas Disneyland, you end on a high.
Oh my gosh, you're so pumped and
the a lot of people are very and this is my issue with the Incredicoaster. I hate that okay, we stopped.
We braked and then cruising.
Disneyland, they made the break exciting because that's when they take your photo.
Yeah.
As
so
opposed
it's
to a
like,
bank
whoa.
turn. Yeah, bank
Yeah.
turn photos were...
And so, and so you end on that high, and so, like, you see the faces
of excitement.
of excitement
Of
when
joy.
people are getting off. Whereas at Disney World, it's all like, that excitement had already passed.
I'm on the ride. This is exciting.
that moment passed by the time they get to the unload. Whereas at Disneyland, you're still on that high.
Oh, it's the best. It's that high as you rush in. You do the turns. I think you do like 3 banks and turn, and then you're like, you make that straight away, and you feel like you're going like 70 miles an hour. You feel like you're going so fast.
And the thing is, like, at Disneyland, when, like, you are about to exit the vehicle, like, and you're watching people exit the vehicle, people are, like, pumped.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And it gets you pumped for riding
The energy is there. And when I'm at Magic Kingdom, it's like, I feel the same when I get off the Matterhorn, where I'm like, oh, my back hurts. I'm 25 years old, and I feel like I've got back problems from riding this. Because it's rickety in that sense where it banks, and it just doesn't have that smoothness, because it doesn't have that refurbishments, that have been done to Disneyland's Space Mountain. And so I think that is the big difference, is, like you said, the music and the track. It makes it. You'll end the ride, and you used to see scenes with Space Mountain.
I will say Disney World has a better exit queue.
It does.
Yes.
Where they don't have the escalator anymore.
No, they got rid of the escalator.
For legal issues.
Probably.
When was it ever working?
It was when I was there.
It worked when I was there.
But,
You always stop, you're like, this is a free ride, as Jim Gaffigan said.
Right. But, like, you have this, like, weird moment where you're looking at, it's very Epcot-like, where you're, like, looking at these, like, futuristic views of other planets or whatnot, or like the future.
And that was because
with robots
and the developers of that was supposed to be RCA scene that I watched, and the same Imagineers that did those scenes went on to work in Horizon, so there was a lot of
there's a lot of connection,
future connection with those two rides.
Whereas Disneyland, it doesn't have the most interesting exit queue. It's just you go up some stairs and then you're
out, but you're riding that high, and
it's true.
It's such a blur because you're so excited. You're getting through there, and you're like, "Well, I want to see my picture."
You rush
you run over there.
It's true. You do. There is,
and you see your picture, like that was great, and then you buy it. I never bought a single picture of Magic Kingdom Space Mountain.
No,
ever.
your cell phone.
Your cell phone's like that's stupid.
Well, now it's all Magic Band.
now you can put on the. But I've never. You can get 6 people in a vehicle for a picture, as opposed to when you get 3 people, and you get a side profile of your legs and whatever bags that you're fumbling with during that part.
As soon as I have a backpack on me,
we were like, hike it in, hike it out. We're not getting the locker. You got your you got your ponchos, you got your food, you got your water, and so it's all there. So I think we're all in a consensus that we all agree.
We all like Magic Kingdom.
Well, no, it's Disneyland. Disneyland is better, and I always tell people, I warn people, I go, hey, Space Mountain's not the same. Just take it as for something different. I don't tell them it's bad or good, but it's just
it's different. It's a different.
Because you may get that one weirdo that's like, I like Magic Kingdom, and you're like, you're ostracized. Like, be gone.
Again, I just listened to a podcast where somebody said that they prefer the Magic Kingdom one, and I don't agree with their
Did you unsubscribe from that podcast
at
that point?
I didn't.
I'm being mean. I really am bullying this, but I really just don't like that. It's mountain.
It's a disappointment, without a doubt. But I didn't agree with his premise. He goes, no. It's scarier because it's older and you feel like it's going to break. And I'm all like, that's not the fear I want when I ride a roller coaster.
If I want that, I'll get it in an old car that I don't know when it's going to give out.
Right.
And go as fast as I can on the freeway.
I don't like that feeling. You put your hands up and you're afraid your hands are going to get cut off. No.
I'll pass.
Yeah.
All right, that concludes my part. What do you got, Jackie?
All right, so I have the Matterhorn.
That's
an appropriate
regal attraction if there ever was.
You're going to talk about the secret Swiss training facility in Epcot?
Yeah.
No? Sorry, you probably don't even know what that is.
So we've got the Matterhorn at Disneyland. between Tomorrowland and Fantasyland.
What land is it really in?
Well, it used to be Tomorrowland, but it is now Fantasyland.
It is considered fantasy.
And then we have a comparable attraction, which is at Animal Kingdom at Disney World, which is Everest.
So it's a completely different situation from Space Mountain.
Two different mountain attractions that have snow on them.
Yes, it's just basically
they have snow.
that there's
each.
snow and there's some sort of monster.
There is
inside.
a snow monster.
So, the Matterhorn, it's 42 inches to ride it, and the Everest, it's 44 inches. 2 inches different to ride the vehicle.
Boy, the fight to get kids on rides are funny. We've never discussed this, but Peter and I have had attractions where there's a height restriction. In Mission Space, there's one, and boy, you know how hard it is to tell identical twins, one can ride and one can't ride, and deal with a parent. We had to call managers. It almost got to the point where we needed security there.
Oh, wow.
I've seen kids wear like soccer cleats.
Yeah.
And I was like,
I've seen tissues in the shoes.
Tissues in the shoes, and that's fine. I'm like, nope, they hit the sign, like, boop, okay, move on. Like, I don't fight for that stuff, but like height restrictions, like, that's one thing.
It's under.
Yep, I've seen like even like I've seen like a mom pack like high heels for the little girl to get like an extra inch.
Whatever. They met the height sign. Move on. I don't get paid enough.
Well, for that reason, that's why Tower Terror, we have 2 checks.
Yeah.
So we have 2 checks. One at the front entrance and one right before you get on the loaded platform.
It's the same at Space Mountain. Not Space Mountain, Mission Space.
Because some parents will put their kids on shoes and then in the queue they'll switch out the shoes and it's like, oh no, your kid's not tall enough.
Yeah, I never had an issue where they pass one, but they don't pass. But I never had where the parents take off shoes. I don't know. But
yeah. So and then there are 2 different monsters in each of the.
Which one's scarier?
So we've got it's Abominable Snowman, which is also called Harold.
No, that's the old one.
Oh.
I don't know what the new one is.
Oh, yeah.
Harold was the still snow monster, just like
frozen.
He was frozen, that you can see in the Guardians of the Galaxy attraction
he's
queue.
there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then at Everest, you have the Yeti, and you wonder what is the
Disco
difference.
Yeti? So Peter calls it?
It's the Disco Yeti.
And you wonder what is the difference between the monsters? Nothing. There's no difference.
At this point, yeah, they're pretty much the same thing now. Before, when the Everest first opened, that Yeti was scary. Because that arm came down and swooped at you, and you thought that thing was going to yank you out of the coaster.
Yeah, and so you
scary.
see in the Matterhorn, you see the Abominable Snowman 3 times throughout the attraction.
He's quick.
He is very quick.
He's coming to get you.
And then you see the Yeti. You see hints of him through the attraction, through the ride, but really only once. And when it opened, you had this giant arm swoop down.
You can see lots of video footage of them promoting this amazing
Swooping arm.
animatronic. It looks so amazing, and it does. But then,
Like a year later, he's broken.
it was breaking the foundation of the attraction.
Because he's up there.
It's a big, monstrous animatronic, and in order for them to fix it, they would have to basically rip out the attraction. Because that's how they built it in, because it's so monstrous. So that's why
They put a strobe
they put a strobe light in there, so now he's considered
Disco Yeti.
Disco Yeti.
Now, the ride vehicles are different. You've got,
Toboggan in one.
Toboggan in one, where they've updated the seating, where
Yes.
you can now...
You don't have to sit in somebody's lap anymore.
Yeah,
It's more American style.
Yes.
Larger space
Yeah.
for everybody.
But depending on where your leg space is...
Yeah, if you got long legs.
Don't
Go
sit
for
in
the
the
back.
front. Yeah, don't sit in the front.
And then at Everest, you've got the classic, I would say, roller coaster.
Side by side, forward to a car.
Forward to a car. Japheth, which ride vehicle do you prefer better?
Oh, I hate toboggans. I think this should be like the Space Mountain, kind of, side by side. I prefer Everest. I love the vehicle situation.
Yes,
There's somewhere to put my bag.
It's a lot more comfortable in the standard roller coaster than toboggan. As a kid, I think it was great, but as you're older and you have aches.
When you're like a little kid, you're like, I'll sit in Dad's lap, and then you're like 30, and you're like, I'll sit in Dad's.
Sitting in my lap, I'm like, oh.
As their weight shifts onto your back, yes. And you're like, oh.
The ride, so when you're on the Matterhorn, you kind of just go straight into the mountain.
It's all gravity based.
Yeah.
So it's just a gravity coaster.
And then Everest, you kind of go on a little side coaster.
Go through a journey, for sure.
Go through a journey before you do the big climb.
It's a climb.
It's a big climb. I mean, when you go up there, you can see Epcot and
Tower.
Yeah,
you can see. It's really cool view. It's like being up top the summit plummet at Blizzard Beach. When you get up there, you can see everything because it's all flat there in Florida. I think the largest mountain in Florida is Sugarloaf Mountain at 200 feet.
I thought it was Everest. I thought they considered Everest.
So Everest is
Maybe.
199 feet
and
tall.
6 inches. I know this because Tower of Terror was the tallest attraction until Everest opened with 6 inches more on it.
They probably had to put one of those electric like spikes up there.
If it's 200, you have to put a little airplane pole on it.
Yeah.
And the Matterhorn is 147 feet. So the Matterhorn is smaller compared to Everest.
But it's
They're
still
not much. They're both tall.
They stick out.
Yes.
The major difference, I would say, so the speed on both of them. Guess the speed on the Matterhorn.
20 miles an hour.
Peter?
I would say less than that. I would say like 15.
The speed on the Matterhorn is 27.
Really?
27 miles per
that
hour.
Does not. Well, I guess. I don't know. Okay.
Some of those banks, maybe.
I guess some of those.
I just banks. Just thinking about like that sudden drop on the south side, and it just.
I don't know. For me, when I ride it at night, I feel like it's a lot faster because the tracks are a little bit more.
Isn't there one that is faster? Isn't the Tomorrowland?
The Tomorrowland one's faster.
And you have a better finish. There's a better finale in that one.
And then Everest, guess the speed.
Oh, it's got to be 30 plus.
Peter?
Yeah, we'll go with like 35.
It is 50 miles per hour. It's one of the fastest.
You get the G-force as you're coming backwards. You're like, whoa.
Well, that's true. This is a word of advice for anyone that rides Everest. When you start going backwards, don't look down because you won't be able to get your head up until it stops going back.
With the Everest coaster, there is a larger thrill. It goes faster. And you do go backwards in a big cave. And it's pretty intense.
I think it's great.
If your head does get stuck looking down, you can see the internal track of the mountain. So you can get a little behind the scenes if your head is stuck. So that's one nice thing about it.
My favorite thing is you go backwards, you see all the hair ties.
Yes, I was going to mention that. So on Everest, you get to the point where you see
the track is broken.
The track is broken. You go, where are we going to go? And there's a pause, and there's now this theme where girls will throw hair ties on the mountain.
Yes.
And I have done that.
Oh, you contributed
to it.
Of course.
That's when they take your picture.
And that's another difference is there's no picture on the Matterhorn, but there is a picture on Everest when you do the big drop after you see the giant.
Well, they don't want to have any legal issues. If
see
you're watching you get out of your vehicle at Matterhorn where you're going, oh my back, oh.
Right.
Oh, did you already have a pre-existing condition? Yeah, that doesn't work.
Right.
Want more information about that? See our People versus Disney episode.
Now, about the queue is the queue at Everest is pretty cool. You see different artifacts about Everest.
I love their queue. It's a
and
great queue.
It's probably one of the best
signs
queues.
of the Yeti, and it's just
There's
really...
a history, too, that they try to, like,
yeah,
portray there.
you can learn a lot in that queue, and you just see different artifacts and different materials you would bring to hike Everest, and...
It's something to look at when you're waiting in the standby line.
Hey, it reminds me of a lot of Indiana Jones.
Yeah,
Yes.
it has that vibe for sure.
And how's the Matterhorn queue?
It's like going to Switzerland, in the sense that you were like in one of those structures. Like in Lucerne, when I was there, they had like this bridge from like the 13th century, and it kind of has that same kind of feel. It's not a very big queue,
No, it's
so it's hard to be
most
very
of the
immersive
queue
with it.
Is a rope queue.
Yeah. But they have music that they infuse in there, and they have the different seals of like the regions in Switzerland, and I think they do a good job for what the ride is allowed to do.
spaces, too.
Yeah, I really think they do a good job.
Got a guy with a nice Swiss accent giving the nice little safety spiel.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Attention!
And then, so let's go with your favorite on which one you prefer.
With the ride,
Yeah.
I Everest is
Yeah, that's not even close.
It's new. It's great. Matterhorn's good if you're trying to introduce a roller coaster to a child.
Yeah.
Where it's not too fast. Yes, there's a scary monster, but that's not the like actual roller coaster part that the kid's gonna be scared about.
Yes.
It's not the big drop at Splash Mountain. Thunder Mountain, it looks fast. Matterhorn is it's in and out, and so it's hard to see it go fast. And so I think that's the good starter roller coaster. I used that one for my wife who didn't like roller coasters. Like, let's try this one.
Yeah, I remember that.
And she, oh, that was fun. Okay, and then next step, Thunder Mountain, then Splash Mountain, and then Space Mountain. And so, like, you can, I think it's the first step in the roller coaster
It has its
development.
importance. It's hard to draw the comparison between the two because, yeah, one is definitely a lot more thrilling, a lot more exciting, and you don't get hurt as much riding.
The other one has a lot of history. It's
correct.
beautiful.
Oh,
I would say it's more beautiful than Everest.
The mountain itself?
Yeah.
I think so. I would
Yes.
agree with that because
It's picturesque.
because it looks good on every angle, whereas
Yes.
Everest, there are definitely angles where you're like, that's a show building
Yeah.
that it's built on top of. So I would agree that the Matterhorn looks aesthetically pleasing on all sides of it.
And it was meant to. And even internally, too, when you had the sky buckets go through.
Yes.
So you're seeing all aspects of it, and it is a nice looking attraction, and it's one of those attractions it won't go anywhere because it's just ingrained in the skyline of
Yeah.
with you have the castle and then you have the mountain. It's there.
So I mean, I agree. We're not here poo-pooing on Matterhorn because it doesn't fill the shoes as that Everest does, but it has its purpose at Disneyland.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like Disneyland is a great park for younger kids to get introduced into that world of thriller,
Yes.
more thrilling attractions.
And there's now a better story in the Matterhorn with the most recent upgrades with upgrading the Yeti.
and there's some screens in there that you
There's
can
some
see.
new screens now.
They put Anna and
And-
Elsa up there.
Not yet. They haven't added
They haven't turned into the park.
They haven't added Elsa's castle to it yet. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, let's hope.
I don't know. We got Bob Chapek. I don't know what he'll do.
But
More Frozen.
the
Yeah.
Matterhorn, it's the only attraction in any of the parks. Like, it is unique to Disneyland.
It is Disneyland only.
Almost went to Epcot.
Almost maybe it was going to be the Swiss Pavilion.
Yep. That's what I was talking about this.
It was going to go where Africa was, wasn't it? Or was it?
No, I think it was going to be over there, in between.
Or was it Morocco?
Where Morocco is. I think that's where it was supposed to go, somewhere around there. But yeah, there was this, and I might talk about this on another episode. But like there was this attraction. They were going to have a Matterhorn, and the story was going to be about this secret Swiss training bobsled facility. Where like you go into the mountains to this secret facility where you're like training for like the Olympics. Or like it was this crazy like storyline.
Bobsled. That's what it is.
Yes. And so, like, you look up some of the concept art for it, and it's, like, mind-blowing. Like, they had, like, 2 different ideas for it, and both of them were, like, out there.
Initial stories or concepts for rides are amazing. And and then when they actually come into fruition, it's just, like, it's so watered down.
You see the budget cuts.
You're like, it's, like, concentrate apple juice when it first comes out, and then you get, like, 90% water and like 10% juice. You know, like, what is this? I think there's a hint of like apple in this.
Yeah.
And that's the unfortunate downside that we run into a lot with a lot of the stateside theme parks, where you get a lot more watered down than you do substance. Unfortunately,
Mission Space, they wanted like an anti-gravity room, and it's like, oh boy.
Yeah, like Disney Imagineering comes up with some amazing ideas. It's just when corporate goes, how much is that going to cost?
Walk in the lawyers.
Yeah. So it's hard to compare the two because they are honestly 2 different attractions.
2 different experiences.
Yes.
They're both mountains with snow.
Yeah, that's about the similarity, and there's a monster in them. But those are pretty much the most common thing between both of them. They're both completely separate, and I love them both.
Yeah, people like I do that. I'd be like, oh, Everett's like the Matterhorn of Disney World, but better.
Yeah. So, Peter, you had...
I was given, surprise, surprise, the Tower of Terror.
Yeah, we didn't want to go too creepy.
I know.
Yeah.
I didn't have to do too much preparation for this one, because as many of you may know, I used to work at the Tower of Terror, so I know quite a bit.
Cue lightning.
You will not be beautiful. No. So yes. So the Tower of Terror opened up at the Disney MGM Studios on July 22nd, 1994. I don't want to go too much into the history of that, because that is probably deserving of its own episode by itself.
Ooh, maybe for Halloween.
We can do a Halloween Tower of Terror episode. That would be great. Like, it is...
Teach us, Yodeler Peter.
It is a very interesting history of how that attraction came to be, and how it went through the whole process of like, it was going to be a young Frankenstein theme at one point.
Kind of the hills of Hollywood.
Yeah.
Oh, fun.
So, so they built this attraction.
Unique.
Very unique, one of a kind. And so, like, when they were looking for elevator companies to help build the elevator for the Tower of Terror, for those who don't know, it's a ride where you get in an elevator and it drops you faster than the speed of gravity. So when Disney went to these elevator companies telling them what they want them to make, a lot of them were like, yeah, we're not going to do that.
Then the lawyers walked in. Yeah.
Correct. To the point where the company that did didn't want their name on the elevator. We don't want people to know this is what we did. And it's so funny because, like, when I went through training, obviously I got to see the inner workings of everything. And they first showed me, this is what a normal elevator machine looks like, the thing that pulls you up. And it's this thing that's about as big as my arm here.
If you don't know, Peter's got these ginormous
I've got 12 feet arms.
He's got orangutan arms.
It's just, I don't know, maybe like 1.5 feet, maybe 2 feet tall, little thing that pulls up elevators that we ride all the time. Okay, then they took me to the roof. Okay, where they actually have the mechanisms that pull the big elevator that drops you faster than the speed of gravity. I actually have let's see here. Each motor weighs 132,000 pounds.
Oh, wow.
Okay. It's 12 feet tall, 7 feet wide, and 35 feet long. So they compare it to the size of a single car garage. So that is what's powering your elevator going up and down. I never felt safer after that point. When I saw that, I had no fear for the Tower of Terror.
The mechanisms that I've heard are just ridiculous.
Like there are so many safeguards.
And it's so sensitive too.
Oh yes. Like the slightest thing goes off, it stops in its place. Like it is a well.
I wonder why. You're just dropping like 20 guests.
Right. So, so let's jump ahead. Okay. California Adventure opened in 2001.
I thought it was sooner, but just time's blurring now. 2001,
and they needed an attraction. They needed something to pull.
What? Monsters Inc. wasn't doing it?
No, Superstar Limo.
Superstar Limo wasn't doing it.
Superstar Limo wasn't doing it.
But that's the key attraction in Hollywood.
And so they were planning on. So at the time, they were actually working on the Tower of Terror for Paris, for their Hollywood park. So instead, they pulled the project from there and put the money into California Adventure because that park needed it more. Which, I don't know, if you've seen that studio park in Paris, it's not very good either. But they did eventually get their own Tower of Terror. But this one was designed differently, and I'll talk about the differences on the ride mechanics here. But it's definitely designed differently. It has a different look to it. The Florida one has more pinkish, purplish hue, whereas California had more of a brown stucco design to it. Pueblo Deco design, and the Florida one was Neo-Mediterranean, which a funny story about the why they painted the Tower of Terror in Florida the way they did, that purple pink hue, is that it's a tall attraction. I mentioned earlier, it's 199 feet tall.
It sticks out.
It sticks out, and it's noticeable in Epcot. And if you're standing at the entrance to World Showcase, and if you look at Morocco, you can see the Tower of Terror poking in between.
And
so they
colors.
So they painted it so that it would match the Morocco theme of Epcot.
Wow.
So that
it blends.
It blends. So they don't have this like random tower that looks like it's in Morocco that's not there. So they designed it that way for Epcot. So the queue. Okay, so actually there's a difference here. So I would say the differences go beyond the queue, before the queue. So like the Florida one, you have that suspense of walking up to the tower because it's at the end of a long street, Sunset Boulevard, long street. So you are seeing this elevator. So like you are literally, as you get closer, you see this thing getting taller and taller and taller.
And you hear the screams.
Yes.
So it builds that anticipation. California, it's like you're walking down Hollywood, you turn the corner to where the theater is, and you're like, oh my gosh, there's a giant building here. It comes out of nowhere.
It's a ninja building.
It is. It really is. It's a ninja building. It's like, whoa.
And then Grogu goes,
hello. So there's a difference there. So the build-up is not quite there in comparison to Florida's. Okay? Obviously, the outward designs are completely different. So you get into, when you enter the queue in Florida, you kind of walk through like this garden of the Hollywood Tower Hotel, where you see the plants, and everything's built on a hill, so it's they designed the hill in a way that makes you feel unease.
There is an uneasiness
when you're standing in the queue outside. So like that was purposely done.
Well, and I like Disney World's queue outside.
It's very good.
Absolutely. Disneyland, there really isn't a queue outside. There is an outdoor queue, but it's a switchback.
It's a switchback, and yes, there's a garden, but
it's not memorable.
No.
Right.
As you're going through there, you're like, oh man, this is unkept, and when you're at Disney World,
So, okay, so now we've walked through the queue. You're in the building now. You enter the building. You're in the lobby. For the most part, it's fairly similar Disney World is a little larger than Disneyland's, rightfully so, because there's not as much space to build a similar sized tower, and obviously budgets, budget cuts.
That's a huge part.
But the lobby in Florida is a lot taller. It's a lot more round at the top, whereas California had a lot more square. It's a little bit more square. Then you get into the library. The libraries are pretty much identical, except for the fact that they have, in California, they have speakers built into the floor. So that when you hear the thunder, you feel it under your feet. So there's a little bit more world immersion in the California one than in the Florida library. And the Florida one definitely is it's feeling old, but not in the good way. Like the carpet's worn out because you can tell millions of people have walked over the rug and they haven't upkept it. Whereas the California one, they didn't do a rug, they did a wood floor.
That's true.
They did a wood floor, and they said, you got to stay in the box. You can't touch anything, which is harder to do in Florida. You stay on the rug.
Yeah.
So then we get into major differences, okay? And I know Tower of Terror is not Tower of Terror anymore in California. It's now Guardians, but I want to talk about the differences between the Tower of Terrors at that time, and I'll talk about the differences because there are a lot of differences with the Guardians. But you enter, in Florida, you enter out, and just like the California one, there are two libraries, and they enter out into the same hallway, where you just kind of merge, kind of like the Haunted Mansion. When you get out of the stretch room, it's just a giant mob of people that merge into a line eventually to get into the attraction. The California one's a little different. You exit out. If you're on the left library, you're going to go upstairs. And if you're on the right side, you stay downstairs. So that right there tells you the difference. The boiler room in California is 2 stories tall, whereas the Florida one is just the one.
I hate the boiler room.
Oh, yeah.
It's the worst.
It is.
So, the layout's a little different. Well, it's a lot different. And I'll tell you why I hate the California one so much.
Tell us why.
Okay, so this is what I hate about the California Tower, is when you get into the tower, you get put into your assigned spots, right? The bellhop tells you, okay, you're going to go row 1, row 2, or whatever. You're standing there, you're waiting. Okay? The doors open, and it's a hallway.
It's true.
You open up, you walk into a hallway, which then leads into your elevator. Hate that. That is the worst.
It's worst theming.
It's the worst. Whereas Florida, you're standing there, you're waiting to go, and you literally get on right through the doorway into the elevator. Okay? So, theming is already better in that sense, boiler room wise, is how you get onto the vehicle. Now, this is where things go completely different because they are 2 different ride systems.
They are, like, I noticed a difference when riding. It's like, oh, Disneyland's is different from Hollywood Studios.
Yes. So, I don't know if this is true. Somebody told me that
a lot of rumors float around.
Well, this is from somebody who worked at Star Tours. They say the ride system that they use for Star Tours, like, you know, their tower control is very similar to the one that they have at California's tower. Whereas the tower control system is
it's like a nuclear reactor.
It really is. Like, it's this giant switchboard. Like, it's crazy. So, for those that don't know, so I'll kind of talk about let me, I've been talking for a while. I'll let my Yodelers talk. Japheth, why don't you tell us what happens in California? So, like, the ride starts, what happens?
Doesn't it take you up to a level?
Not yet.
Okay.
Something happens before it takes you up.
I don't know.
It pulls you back.
Oh, that's right. It does pull you back.
Yes.
You go into a shaft.
Correct. You go into a shaft, and then
the ride begins, and you start going into different scenes at
okay,
different levels.
do you know what the first scene is?
Is it the hallway?
The hallway.
It's the mirror.
The mirror. Oh, it cracks.
That's right where you disappear.
Yeah,
The
jump
magic
into...
mirror is what they call it. The magic mirror, where you see, you see everybody in the elevator disappear.
That's right.
Okay, and then it goes to the hallway. Okay, and that's where you see the story take place. And then after that scene, that's when you get dropped.
Yeah.
Right then and there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then it starts going up.
Yes. Okay. And then the ride happens, and then it goes back down to where you started, back up to the load platform where you unload, back into the hallway, down the stairs, or around the corner to where you get your picture. Now, Florida. Jackie, can you walk us through the Florida ride, or do you need me to do that?
I'll need some assistance.
Okay.
I do remember, they bring you up to a level, don't they?
Correct.
Yep, so you go up to a level, and then you move forward.
Okay, so first, you're right. First, they take you to the hallway scene. Okay, so you don't do the backwards motion. You're literally in the elevator shaft. So you go straight up into the hallway scene where you see, the story of the people disappearing and all that stuff. And then you go up to the 5th floor, commonly known as the 5th dimension.
Oh yeah, that's right. You're like floating through.
That's right.
Because
I mentioned on a prior episode that this is Walt Disney World's first trackless vehicle, where the elevator moves out of the elevator shaft across the floor through the spooky Twilight Zone themes.
Which, I'm going to be honest, the transition design could probably be stepped up a little bit better.
Agreed. It's, having been there and seen it with the lights on, it's like wood boards.
Yes.
It's not well made. It could be updated for sure.
When they open up, turn on the lights of the Haunted Mansion, you're like, wow, look at all the detail. But so I imagine the studio.
Yeah.
It's like...
And so you go through, and then you get into the main elevator shaft. And from there, that's when you do your drop sequences, which then, when you finish, you're at the bottom.
You transition.
You back out. You go backwards.
You see the creepy dummy.
And then it turns. Then your elevator turns to the side and pulls into the unload station.
Yeah, it does take a while to transition.
So
once you're done.
So the Disney World one does this circular motion. It's a loop, but you as a guest don't get to finish the loop. But the elevators move in a loop to constantly cycle, whereas the California ones, you have to wait for one ride to finish before you can send another ride to go. So there's a lot more fluid motion in terms of how those two rides operate, which is the same for Guardians of the Galaxy. It's the same thing as the California Tower. It does the same thing, backs up, goes up and down, and
it just has an overlay of Guardians of the Galaxy.
Correct. So, some of the differences, they're the same in the sense of you go about 30 miles per hour. That's about the fastest you go as you're dropping.
Love it.
Right?
It's so much fun.
So the differences in height, the Florida one was 199 feet tall. The California one is 183 feet tall. In Florida, you as a guest will drop at 170 feet. And in California, you drop at 157 feet.
So the listeners, and I'm kind of curious too, is it 13 stories?
No, it's not.
They always say, it's 13 floors.
No, it's
That's 6 or
it's
7.
8 or 9.
Yeah.
It's something like that. It's not.
It would look ridiculous to have a 13-story building up there.
That would be ridiculous. And it's built on a hill, too.
It is.
The Florida one's built on a hill. But, yeah. So, the time it takes to go through the ride, how long do you think it takes to go through the Florida ride?
I say it's, from what aspect?
From the time the elevator starts. You're in the elevator, The bellhop, hit the button to go.
And then when you get out?
And then you get out.
I say 4 minutes.
Yeah, 5.
3 minutes and 15 seconds.
Wow.
Okay, I thought it was in the 3-4 range.
How long do you think California's is?
Oh, it's less.
It's quick.
Like
They don't have as many
2
like
minutes.
2 minutes, 15 seconds.
Yeah,
So it's literally a minute shorter.
when you lost
than
the
Florida
dimension
one.
part,
Right.
you lose a good minute right there.
Correct. So it's a shorter ride. So that's the differences. I mean, if you were to have me pick which one did a better job theming-wise when California was Tower of Terror, Florida killed it.
Always.
Theming-wise. Like sure, they had a better... I felt like California had a better library. It just looked better, and they maintained it better than the Florida one did. Maybe it was lesson learned situation. But I think the fifth dimension scene is 1,000 times better than the magic
It
mirror
really
effect.
gets you like, whoa, I'm somewhere else now.
I like the California one more with the mirror than
You like the magic mirror effect?
I like the magic mirror effect.
Okay.
I think Michael Eisner said it when he wrote it. He was like, "Oh, that's it." He was kind of disappointed because he was there for the Florida one,
Yep.
and he just like, "Oh,
That's the way
boy,
I
we
felt.
really cut some things out."
Absolutely. Obviously, California Adventure got its remodel, so now it's Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout.
Boy, I was like anti
Man, when
the.
he announced
I was
that,
angry.
There was a lot of...
so much anger.
There was.
It's like when Ben Affleck was called to be Batman.
Oh yeah.
And then you saw him as Batman, and you're like, yeah, that was deservingly so. But with Guardians of the Galaxy, overlay.
Which a lot of people were always asking me my opinion. Because I used to work at Tower of Terror. And
I
so
think it's a legit question.
people
Yeah.
wanted to know my opinion of it. And this is my general...
They're trying to gaslight you?
Yeah. So like this, and then I still hold on to this position to whenever they announce that they're closing something or they're replacing something is let me see what they do and then I'll make my judgment, because was I skeptical? Yes, I was very skeptical of the changes, like, oh, the theming was perfect, why are you doing this?
I love that era too. The Art Deco.
Oh,
and,
yeah, it was great.
1930s.
But I was okay with it because I had no emotional attachment to that tower. Now, I've heard talks that they might change the Florida one into Doctor Strange or something. I don't know. That's what I think, what's his name, said, that they threw around that idea for a Doctor Strange version of Tower. That could happen down the road. We'll see. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Yeah, it's the ride system is very similar. Just the inside looks different. It looks a little bit more spacey and futuristic inside, except for the boiler room, which still looks like a boiler room.
It does.
And then you ride the ride, and it screens. You look at a bunch of screens to tell you the story, but you get right into the drops, which the ride is still the same length of time, but you get more drops.
So the drop sequences with the story make it so much fun.
And
Oh,
you
it
have
does.
different music each time you ride, and it's just like that classic fun music you dance to.
It's a fun experience. Like it's definitely not Tower of Terror. It's not like scary themed. It's fun.
It's thrill.
It's thrill, and it's fun, and it's exciting.
Oh, I love the Halloween nighttime overlay.
The After Dark.
After Dark.
The After Dark is great because it's like heavy metal music that they play.
You got monsters and you got the Guardians fighting, and it's just too
Which
fun.
we talked about on our prior episode when we said Halloween in the Parks episode. So go back and listen to that one. We'll talk more about the Guardians overlay there.
Oh yeah.
But overall, it depends. If you want to pick your favorite one, it depends on what you're looking for in terms of an attraction. If you're looking for more of the thrill, I think the thrills were better at California than they were in Florida. I felt the drops were a little bit more intense in California.
I agree.
And even more so now with the Guardians theme. I know I had a cast member that told me I was wrong when I said I think the drops are better in California than in Florida, but I think Florida does a better job telling a story.
It does have a better immersive story.
Correct. Even to the point when you get out of the ride, instead of throwing you out into a hallway, they throw you out into, this creepy basement.
Yeah.
Still in theme, and there's a lot of Easter eggs in there where you see your photo and an old abandoned idea for a restaurant, and even the gift shop is well themed as well. So I think they did a really good job of theming the entire building. They even themed a training room inside that building.
Whoa.
Yeah, there's a room that's literally themed. I mean, there's not much in there. It's pretty bare. I forgot what the room was called, but there's a room, and it's themed, and that's where you do some of your training, where they're going over the manuals. And
That's impressive because
That's cool.
any cast member who's worked at a Disney park knows that
Backstage
is bare bones.
Bare.
They call it backstage for a reason because it's like a set of a movie where it's not.
And that surprised me when they put me in that room. When they took me to that room, I was like, "Oh, it's painted, and they've got like furniture in here, and but like, yeah,
doesn't look like a cafeteria.
It does not look like
the counters from the 1980s.
Like if you were to just step out the door to the stairway is just a typical like garage stairway sort of thing where it's just like this gray
typical
stairway. So like it's weird to like enter this like themed training room.
I like the of all the gift shops to end up in, I think that one is probably the most fun.
It's true. It's one of the better gift shops.
And they have some of the best merchandise.
For a ride?
Yes.
Yes. Before the Haunted Mansion really ramped up in the last 5 years, the Tower of Terror had some of the best. Pirates, they have good merchandise, but I like the classiness of the Tower of Terror.
Yes. Well, because it was like hotel merchandise.
Yes, you get towels,
you
a
get
little
robe. It was just nice.
Get a little bell.
Yeah. A do not disturb sign.
That's right. So that was my perspective on the differences between the two different towers that are in Disneyland and at Disney World.
Yeah, so those were the 3 attraction themes that we picked out. If you want to hear a comparison of other attractions, let us know.
Yeah, we can talk about Buzz Lightyear.
Oh, yeah.
Please don't. I'll solve it right here. The joystick doesn't come out. Solved, done.
But you can email us at matterhornyodlers@gmail.com. You can also send us a message on Instagram. We have a Facebook page, so follow us there. Leave a comment on our weekly posts. Love to hear from you. We love the support. And subscribe on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel.
I haven't updated that in a while. I probably should. I think we're like a month behind, so.
We have our audio clips on
Yes.
YouTube.
So if you
some of our prior episodes.
So you can listen to us there. But that's all the time we have today. And thanks for listening. Have a magical day.
Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of the Matterhorn Yodelers. Please remember, before your bobsled comes to a complete stop, to follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And remember...
Remain seated, please. Permanecer sentados, por favor.